Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us, caring about your world. We're going to be joined by Dr. Llewellyn and Jason Durkovics. In this next hour, stay tuned to the Power Hour. You always learn something. You miss one day, you miss a lot at the Power Hour. 5 reasons to reconsider chicken. Number 1, arsenic. Yep, chickens are fed arsenic food. That's right. It was used in chicken production. Now, Pfizer's pulled the drug, Roxarzone, but another one has come in to replace it, and it's called Nitrazone, inorganic arsenic. It's used to make chickens grow faster and resist parasites, but its unattended effects could be detrimental just a little bit to your health. It's called arsenic. 2, it might not be chicken at all. Sometimes when you're eating chicken parts, or chicken whatevers, tenders, chicken this, chicken that, you're eating only partial chicken meat, blood vessels, bones, connective tissue, nerves, and other dog food ingredients make up half of the nuggets tested in one study. That is tantalizing, isn't it? Number 3 is salmonella, and some salmonella are resistant to cooking. E. coli. An estimated 87% of chicken test positive for E. coli. But that's chicken that goes to the stores. That's not chicken from grass-fed chicken, okay? And then the Chinese chicken problem. The Chinese communist chicken problem going to be taking over this country. So go to eatwild.com. Eatwild.com is a website where you can find out where to get raw milk. Oh, shame on me for saying such a thing. Where you can get grass-fed beef, grass-fed buffalo, grass-fed chickens, and grass-fed for eggs. So check it out. The detoxifying benefits of bentonite clay. I cannot say enough for bentonite clay. I hope you take the liquid clay or mixtures up from the dry, whichever you do. We have over 80,000 toxic chemicals in our environment. Wow. Unbelievable. And clay is, I think, the best. In taking the liquid clay once or twice a day, what you're going to do is it is a negative ion, and it pulls the positive ions out into the stool and flushes them out of the body. Acetaminophen is linked to increased risk of kidney dysfunction when combined with alcohol. A lot of people know this. A lot of people know it and don't care. But when you take acetaminophen or Tylenol, that is the number 1 cause of acute liver failure. And how many times do people take pain pills and alcohol together? It is unbelievably bad for your liver. It is the number 1 cause of liver failure in the United States. Gee, I didn't see that in the commercial advertising Advil, did you? Or whatever. Research shows curcumin suppresses cancer cell invasion and metastasis. This curcumin thing is unbelievable. And in Taipei, Taiwan, researchers found the active component of turmeric, curcumin, has anti-tumor capabilities. They find this all the time. They found it at MD Anderson Cancer Center. Curcumin was found to activate tumor-suppressing proteins that are responsible for stopping cancer cell invasion and the further spread of cancer or metastasis. Get it at the Power Mall, please. We have curcumin at the Power Mall. 877-817-9829. Now, here is something to get you off the couch. Did you know the lack of cardiovascular fitness kills more people than diabetes, smoking, and obesity combined? That's a giant uh-oh, isn't it? That's a giant better pay attention. The ability of the heart and lungs to provide oxygenated blood to the tissues, coupled with the muscles' proper use of oxygen. That's what cardiovascular fitness is, and that's why you need it. A man with psoriasis loses weight and healed his psoriasis with a raw food diet. Check it out. Can it be? Yes, it is. We'll be back after this 3-minute break with the Power Hour. Stay tuned. This is Joyce Riley. It'll be Dr. Llewellyn and Jason Durkovics. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us, caring about your world. It's all about the truth. It's all about finding out what is real and separating that from the fraud. And there's a lot of it out there. We're going to bring now Jason Durkovics, who is the one person that was responsible for bringing us Grown by Nature, and we've been so grateful ever since, that he shared with us after formulating after working with a lot of different vitamins and supplements. He came upon Grown by Nature, and he stuck with that one, and we're going to find out a little bit more about that and why. And, Jason, I want to thank you very much for joining us in the Power Hour today.
Thank you for having us, Joyce.
Absolutely. And Dr. Llewellyn, Dr. Eric Llewellyn, hi there, from the UK.
Hi.
You know, Dr. Llewellyn, when I was testifying as a medical malpractice expert in nursing issues in court, they would always qualify the expert. They had to qualify the expert as to why this person is an expert to be talking to us. And, you know, I've never asked you to do this, but I would like for you to qualify yourself as the expert that's talking to us about supplements today, what it is that you did in the past, your education that brings you to the point where you are qualified to be an expert for us today on the Power Hour.
I think in my advancing years, I'm a student, actually, not an expert. I became interested in nutrition. Let me see, what am I, 65 now? Should be retired, but not. I became interested in nutrition at the age of 10, started studying it, became vegetarian, which I knew would save the world at the age of 12, published an article on raw food at the age of 13, started studying herbs for medicine because food kept you healthy. Then when I started at college, I realized that foods weren't healthy anymore because there was nothing in the soil. Well, not nothing. There's lots in the soil, of course. But there's some very crucial minerals for our health. They just weren't in the soil. Nobody was talking about. So after college, I did a few years with a pioneer called Dr. Philip Kilsby. And we were doing soil experiments. And we had a major a world farming journal, refused to publish our information on the lack of selenium and magnesium in the soil and the health implications. What did I do after that? I then started to really do some research and to do my own consultancy about how to supplement your health because you needed it. You weren't going to get it from the food. And then 30-something years ago, I found this company that were making these food matrix nutrients, which impressed me no end. And at that time, we had just started the fledgling Bristol Cancer Help Centre, which is now one of the 5 centres of excellence in Britain for non-toxic cancer treatment, by the way. And so we started using the real food supplements, which is what people think they're buying anyway, and we found the healing times and everything were considerably more helpful to people's health, and we got better results in truth. We've also done clinical trials comparing the standard chemical vitamins, which do have an acute help, but not a chronic help, I don't think. And the last 35-odd years, that's what I've been working with, nutrients and publishing clinical trials and conducting clinical trials. Is that the briefest?
That's excellent. That is excellent. That's perfect, yes. Let me go to the issue of food. And the reason I want to do that is because that food also plays a major, major role. I've been reading a lot on green grasses lately, on green items, on what they do in the body. And since you have been a vegetarian for so long and have been involved in raw foods, would you please discuss with us what it is that greens do for the body? For instance, why is it important that people have kale and things that look kind of funny on their plate that they're not accustomed to? But why is it important that they either juice or blender that or eat those raw salads?
Well, you get into the area which is sometimes described as pseudoscience. I do not believe it to be. In that area is what you call living forces. We all recognize when somebody's very sort of full of vitality and good health, but it's extremely difficult to define. Now, one of the reasons is there is a structure in living foods. It has a signature, if you like, and that signature of vibrant life transfers across into the human organism and is recognized by the cell, and there's plenty of evidence of that. And I think that also you're going to, with raw food, get a lot more enzymes for a start, which are little magical spark plugs in your body that trigger all sorts of chemical reactions, which you won't get from cooked food. Basically, I think you've got three categories of food. You've got living foods, which means you go and pick an apple, and we know that's full of vitality, or you have dormant foods, which is you picked the apple 6 months ago and stored it. That is not quite so good. And then you get what I call devitalized foods, which are the standard processed packaged foods. Now, they do have some benefits, surprisingly, but not a lot from my living foods concept. And the living foods also relates to where in the weather pattern. In other words, if you get more sunshine on your apple, then it's a lot better than in an apple grown in a cold climate. There are just different nutrient profiles which are quite understandable. But also you're going to get a whole bunch of other nutrients once you have your raw food. You'll get a lot more of the polyphenols. You get some of the vitamins which are destroyed. Very, very importantly, though, you get chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is one of the leading detoxifiers of the body and the liver, and you just lose a lot of the chlorophyll once you start getting into cooking your food. It actually leaches out, to be honest with you. So you still get some chlorophyll, but it's just not going to be there. It improves the function of the kidneys. Now, we also know that chlorophyll has been identified as one of the key factors that inhibit the mutation of promoting carcinogens, especially with colon cancer. I heard your little bit about chickens, if I can jump in. One of the things people don't realise, and I'm sending it to Jason Durkovitz today, is the tremendous destruction HAAs do. Now, these are heterocyclic aromatic amines, particularly noticeable in fried chicken. Chlorophyll will inhibit the absorption of HAAs, one of the few things that will do it. And as I say, the antioxidant property of the chlorophyll accelerates the clearance not only of HAAs, but of other things from the other toxins from the liver. So I'm sending, one of the things that's very interesting, actually, in the old days, there used to be creams made from nettles and all sorts of things, but basically it was the chlorophyll applied topically that stimulated the growth of new skin tissue in the case of burns and wounds. And I can remember still seeing that being used many years ago. But the chlorophyll, again, will improve the absorption of iron and a whole bunch of other things into your body. So that's why I like raw food so much. It's particularly, I like the level of enzymes you'll get from it, which you're just not going to get from other things. And, of course, chlorophyll is in a range of vegetables that you can eat raw, such as the cabbage, lettuce, spinach. It's available in various herbs and algae, of course, although algae are a bit, you have to know what you're dealing with nowadays, and some of the grasses. But it's also employed, don't forget, as a food colouring. Now, most of the chlorophyll used in food colouring is altered chlorophyll. It's not proper chlorophyll. So the enzymes and getting the whole range of chlorophylls that are in raw food is what it's my particular bag, as they would say.
Well, I think
one of the things I can say is it is extremely effective in helping to protect the prostate. The pancreas. And if I remember rightly, it was effective to something like 42% of pancreatitis patients, just the chlorophylls alone.
Interesting. Wow.
I'll find that for you if I can. That is a published study. I remember the study, and that was from green barley, by the way. And I think barley is a much better profile than a lot of foods, actually. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, there's a group called Hallelujah Acres, and they have an 80% raw food diet that they promote, and a lot of it is the green barley that they utilize. And
it's a wonderful thing, green barley.
It is.
And, it's something I do encourage people to take and have a juice, because if you take it as a food, you don't get as much, and people don't chew properly, which means they lose probably 60% of their nutrients. Listen to me being rude about your dear listeners, but people don't choose their food properly, and they lose probably 50% of the benefit they would get from chewing properly.
That brings us to the idea of blending, which is a really good way of getting that food all broken up so that it can be easily utilized by the body.
Totally and utterly agree. And I'm not anti at all. Of course, it's better to get your barley and juice it fresh, but the processing on a lot of these barley juices, as far as I can tell, is very sensitive, and you still get most of the benefit of barley grass from the powder. The ones I've tried anyway, we've assayed them as well.
Before we move on to separate nutrients and the reasons for taking them, I want to ask you if you would mind sharing with us, what is your average diet like in a day's time? In other words, give us an opinion, give us an idea what it is that you eat throughout the day for nutrition in addition to your body.
I have to stand in the corner first and put my weirdo dunce's cap on, because I'm a bit different.
Okay, wait a minute. We got a break. So we'll hear about the weird dunce's cap guy, his diet, after this 4-minute break. That's a cliffhanger, isn't it, for you? We're going to find out what he eats on a daily basis, what he believes is good for his body at 65 years of age. Sounds like he is really healthy. We'll be back. 4 minutes. Stay tuned. Joyce Riley, Dr. Llewellyn, and Jason Durkovic. Thank you so very much for joining us, caring about your world, treating your body like a temple, not a dumpster. Yes, it's all about what you eat and what you take, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. We're talking to Dr. Eric Llewellyn now in the UK, and he is explaining to us, or going to explain to us, why he has a little bit different diet. He's a little bit unique, or odd, he says, and we'll take that as his words, but a little bit different in the diet in which he partakes. What is it, Dr. Llewellyn, that you would eat in a day's time?
Well, yes, definitely a bit odd, but I found it works for me. I have about 1 week's holiday every 2 or 3 years and get a bit flustered when I'm doing it, and I probably travel about, 80, 100,000 miles a year in airplanes, and I seem to be okay. I don't really have time to get ill, so it's either not having time to get ill or my diet. But it works for me, and if any bits that I say help somebody else, that's fine. I'm very keen on the principle of living foods, and so my breakfast normally, I would like to say 7 days a week, but that would be a fib. It's probably about 3 or 4 days a week. I usually squeeze and drink the juice of one organic lemon about 20 minutes before my breakfast. I dilute that with lukewarm water, and sometimes I put a little bit of honey in it, sometimes I don't, but I always have that about 20 minutes before my breakfast, at least 4 days a week. And then for breakfast, here we go with the weird stuff. I like very much my oats, and I don't cook them. I soak them overnight in apple juice, organic apple juice, and in the morning I put some raisins with it and sometimes a little bit of organic live yogurt. So that becomes then my breakfast. Sometimes I have some toast, but probably once a month. But that's about it. And I have a cup of green tea. During the morning, I will eat a little bit of fruit, usually a banana, which is ripe. In other words, it's got black spots on it. If you eat yellow bananas, they don't help your health very much and your energy. If you eat them when they're slightly black, they do help your health because the starch is turned to sugars. For lunch, I normally have Well, my favourite lunch, which I tend to eat quite a lot, is jacket potato or sweet potato, and then I have mixed bean salad with green salad with it. It's very boring, I know, but I actually enjoy it very much. And then I have probably sometimes a little bit of cottage cheese with that, sometimes ordinary cheese, and then I'll go through the afternoon just with a few glasses of water or cordial. I use elderflower and organic elderflower. Then for supper, I will have some, I'll start with some salad, usually seasonal salad. At the moment, I'm having my grated carrot with sultanas and grated raw fruit and some spinach leaves. And then I will probably have a little bit of lightly steamed vegetables and boring, really, isn't it? But I enjoy it. And I make my own dressings, which I find great fun, experimenting with those. And that's probably me till a bit later on when I may have another cup of green tea or something. And then it's probably about 2 o'clock by then, and I go to bed.
Well, you know, the average person would say, well, there's not a lot of calories in that diet. But then I think people need to understand we probably eat twice as many calories as we really need, and the people who live longest eat the least calories, do they not?
You know, one can talk about this sort of intellectual argument, which is what I think it comes down to. But I've studied a lot of older diets, and I spent a long time in the bush in Africa, in the Caribbean, and in the Far East in poor communities. And you would say they eat far too much calories with all the starches and everything, and yet they're not fat. So I think it's the way we eat or consume our calories, because I don't think they're constant. I think cooked food calories act quite differently in the body too, and you can see that in the glycemic index and things like that. But I think cooked food calories are far less usable to the body than raw calories. And I don't think the body uses raw calories if it doesn't need to, where cooked calories, it doesn't have a choice. It has to store them somewhere.
All right. I appreciate that very much. Now, let's say that you have now set the foundation for your diet, for your the diet that you partake on a daily basis, and with some variance, of course. But then let me ask you this. Outside of that, what is it that you think you need to take from Grown by Nature to be able to add to that?
Yes, I should say that I do I'm a great fan of Indian food, and I do cook myself some Indian meals. And outside of that, every day I will take my antioxidant, my selenium, my magnesium, and my multivitamin without fail.
All right. When we come back, we got to go to another break. I apologize. I'm going to go to this break, come back, and then we're going to find out what he takes from Grown by Nature, and then why Grown by Nature from he and Jason. Stay tuned to the Power Hour. Joyce Wiley. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. Caring about your body, treating it like a temple, not a dumpster. That's right. We are so pleased to have you join us today. We are talking today to Dr. Eric Llewellyn and Jason Durkovics. Now, we haven't talked to Jason about why he uses Grown by Nature or why he chose Grown by Nature, and we'll get to that in a second. But again, back to Dr. Llewellyn. So, Dr. Llewellyn, tell me the 3 or 4 items that you think are a must. Even though you have a very good diet, a sterling diet, what are the items that you think are a must for a person on a really good diet or a person who eats really bad food but wants to improve their nutritional status?
Well, you can talk about people who eat a very good diet. It's probably not likely they will still get enough selenium, and it's probably likely they won't get enough magnesium. Now, magnesium is like the electrical impulse for the spark plug that's in 100 trillion cells of our body. So people, when they are fatigued and run down, the cells just can't work. The spark plug's not working. And by the way, exercise, and especially endurance exercise and exercise in gymnasia with bad air, depletes the system of magnesium. So while you think you're getting healthy, you're getting rid of precious reserves of magnesium. Now, there are about 33 different chemical forms of magnesium. You'll read them on the bottle. It'll say citrate, gluconate, carbonate, whatever it is. They work at about 10 or 11%. So whatever it tells you is in there, say it's 500 milligrams, you've got to calculate back to how much actual magnesium there is and how much gluconate there is, and then calculate about 10% of that. The reason I like the Grown by Nature is because when it says you get 30, 40 milligrams of magnesium in a food matrix, you do. I try and say to people when I'm traveling in America, if you buy the Grown by Nature, it's what you think you're buying now until you read the label, and then you'll confirm you're getting a food. So that's my lecture on magnesium. You don't need my lecture on selenium. It's twice as long, and I get very wound up about it. But 9 out of 10 Americans are short of selenium, and the selenium products sold in health stores are also listed in Europe as, some of them are listed as carcinogens, and they won't be allowed to be sold in Europe, but they're freely sold as sources of selenium in America, and I think that's terrible. But that's that. So I wouldn't go a day without at least 200 to 400 micrograms of selenium, and the beauty about the Grown by Nature ones is they won't get a toxic buildup, which you will with the chemical forms, and that's the same for the magnesium. I always take, well, I tell you what I take 3 or 4 magnesium a day, which is about 80 to 100 milligrams, something like that, which is well below the RDA, but the RDA is completely fictitious and based on chemical salts, not on food magnesium. And I take my 200 to 400 of selenium, my magnesium. I generally take 2 or 3 multivits, but that's what I do, and I generally take 2 antioxidants. That's what I do. So that's my daily prescription if I'm not topping up on vitamin D or something like that. But I think I get adequate vitamin D anyway.
Okay, then let me go to Jason Durkovics, who has been involved in nutritional supplements in the past, and he is now working solely with Grown by Nature, and I want to ask him why, and what is it about Grown by Nature? Because a lot of people will say, well, there's not enough vitamin A, or there's not enough this, or there's not enough that in it. But, Jason, thank you for joining us, and tell us, what is it about Grown by Nature that made you make that shift over to all the other items to nothing but Grown by Nature?
Well, thank you for, again, having us, Joyce. Greatly appreciate it. And
sure.
Belated happy Thanksgiving to you, and I have the utmost thanks to give you for keeping us on the air and allowing us to share our message.
Well, thank you.
I first began as a marketing major in college. I went to study business development, and when I landed my first job, I sort of earned the way up to the ranks as a product manager. And as a product manager, we were constantly bombarded. I worked for an international health and wellness company, and we were constantly being bombarded with various submissions for different types of products and stuff that we should carry. And I did the back-end research on a lot of the supplements that were being submitted, some of these different types of vitamin concoctions and different types of mixed drinks that you can put into water to dilute. But it all comes down to researching what the actual ingredients are, because everyone has a great marketing message about how their product is better than the next one. This company will put even more detail onto their packaging to make it look like it's a better product. But as the consumer, all we need to really do is really read the ingredients and do a little bit of research on where are these ingredients coming from. And when I was first approached by some of these other supplement companies, I said, okay, well, that's the same exact chemical isolate, which is used in this company, which is used in that company, which is used in that company. And it didn't really make sense for us to carry any form of a nutritional supplement. And then that's when we were approached by these actual living food structured nutrients called renatured nutrients. And that's when I was sort of interested to do a little bit more research. And what I found out was that not only were these actual whole food nutrients, which are organic, non-genetically modified materials, but they also were scientifically validated, stating, just as Eric had pointed out, what we are listing on the front of the label also matches on the back of the label. And when I say that is because a lot of times when you look at some of these other supplement companies, they'll say magnesium or calcium on the front or vitamin C, and then you turn the back of the bottle around, and when you're reading the ingredients, you don't see any type of food listed, or if you do see a food listed, more often than not, that food has something entirely different than the actual ingredient that they're trying to promote on the front of the label. A lot of companies will list that they're a whole food supplement, but they're only putting in, let's say, a little bit of food, but then they're mixing in the isolated USP or United States Pharmacopoeia grade chemical nutrient so they can list a higher RDA on their labels. With these renatured nutrients, you get exactly what is listed on the front is verified on the back. When we're saying vitamin C, we're giving you concentrated oranges. When we're saying beta-carotene, it's coming from carrot concentrate. And all these studies have shown that these nutrients are not only better absorbed, but they're better retained and utilized within the body. A lot of times, all the marketing focuses on absorption of nutrients, but absorption only means that the products are getting into your body and sometimes never even coming out. But what's more important is to determine, well, how is my body using this once it enters my body? And renatured nutrients have been shown that they're far superior, not only in absorption, but retention and utilization.
You know, one of the things that really made me a believer in Grown by Nature was that Rosie over in the Power Mall had a daughter who was extremely, and I've talked about this several times, extremely deficient in iron. She was very anemic, and she was at the point of having to go to the doctor. The doctor gave her a prescription for iron. And let me ask this of Dr. Llewellyn, because the doctor gave her a prescription for iron. She took that for a month or two, and nothing happened. She was just as anemic as she was before.
I've met this so many times. It's not iron, it's ferrous sulfate, iron sulfate. Generally, it'll be iron sulfate, which means that usually about 330 milligrams of, it declares 330 milligrams of iron, but it's not. It's 330 milligrams of iron sulfate. Sulfate is a rather nasty form, in my view, and it just it has no recognition by the body, and we've done actually looked at the toxic effects of ferrous sulfate. It was one of the oldest medicines. It used to be made from pig iron rust, and
wow.
Effectively, that's still what ferrous sulfate is today, but it's a mechanical sulfate. But no, you stand about absorption's probably lower than 2%, and there is no pathway for that ferrous sulfate in your body, so you try and bombard the body with this wretched stuff. When you take the Grown by Nature form, it's the only form of about 40 different forms of iron, by the way, that actually has the proteins that take it to the site where it's needed. I don't like ferrous sulfate, but you will find that people who can't get the ferrous sulfate to work for them, and they get all the problems with, sort of constipation, bad skin, and loads of other things from ferrous sulfate.
Okay, but let me add that here's the kicker to this story, is that when Rosie finally got her daughter to listen to her mother, which is, many times a hard thing to do, and she told her daughter, to quit taking the iron from her doctor and try Grown by Nature, it wasn't but a couple of weeks that it started to resolve. And she has, as I understand, taken it ever since. But it was so much better. Now, what is the difference between your iron and the pig iron stuff in the other product?
Well, ferrous sulfate is it's inorganic, and it's basically 20% iron and 80% sulfate, and we all know the problem with sulfate. And by the way, iron sulfate is known to deplete the body of vitamin E. Ferrous sulfate. So when you take your iron, you will actually be depleting, according to scientific references, you will be depleting your body's own vitamin E, and then you can play the catch-up game. Well, I'll take some vitamin E. Oh, that form of vitamin E is going to knock the vitamin D out, and so on. The reason is very simple. There is no biochemical pathway of recognition for ferrous sulfate within the body, so it's treated just like you would treat arsenic or any other poison. The body tries to get rid of it. Now, because it's I think it's a nasty substance, and it's very hard to get rid of and causes all sorts of health problems. But when you take the Grown by Nature one, this is a food the same way as you would find your iron in cabbage or your iron in, other foods. The proteins the carbohydrate, and to indeed the lipids in this food matrix of Jason's nutrients, that is the delivery part. It's like sending Joyce a letter with $10,000 in it and just putting Joyce on the envelope. Not going to get to you. If I put Joyce, the Power Hour, and full address, and by the way, Joyce is there in 8 o'clock in the morning, you're going to get your money. So Jason's products have the delivery address, validated by Nobel Prize, by the way, and also the sulfate has no address at all. So if you keep that in your mind and you read on the back of an iron supplement any of 30 different aspartate, carbonate, chloride, citrate, fumarate, any of those, that's not an address. The body will try and get rid of it. That's why it's high dose. And the reason people say that the food supplements Jason has is low dose is very simple, because they're comparing them with chemicals. If you compare them to actually foods, even the vitamin C in an orange, you'll find Jason's are high potency. High potency compared to foods, low potency compared to chemicals, but you will use at most 5 to 10% of the chemical once you found out what it is. Sorry if I get wound up about these
No,
things.
excellent. I want to open up the phone lines for a couple of people that would like to call after this break, or give us a call now, and we'll take you after the break. A couple of people that have specific areas of vitamins that they would like to address, that are perhaps taking Grown by Nature or have a question about it. At
I'll do my best.
I'm sorry?
I'll do my best to help.
Okay. 855-995-6923. 855-995-6923. Now, because we've become so aware of selenium and its importance in the body, is all selenium the same? We didn't really talk about what kind it is. Is selenium, or is there a difference?
There's a world of difference, Joyce, and the forms of selenium. You have about 10 different forms of selenium. The form that you will find in food, when you do find it in food, is bound up with proteins and other peptides and other enzyme activators and lipids and things like that. The form you will get is a chemical, which could be an aspartate, a methionine, and people often say, oh, selenium methionine. Now, please don't get me wrong, there is some benefit from the L-selenium methionine. In my view, it's nowhere near the optimistic claims people make, because the levo form is the active form in the body. It's not the active form in food.
Okay. Good to know. And listeners, I'm telling you, Grown by Nature, that is the one I use. And a lot of people use it for very good reason. We'll be back. 3-minute break. Stay tuned. Take your phone calls, 855-995-6923. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us, caring about your world. And, we've been learning a lot today. It is not what is on the bottle that is important. It's what's in that item that is in the bottle that is important. Dr. Eric Llewellyn is joining us. He takes a holistic view of nature, health, and life in general. He graduated from the British College of Naturopathy and Osteopathy in London. He received training in nutrition and holistic health with Dr. Philip Kilsby. We've been talking to him for this last hour about what he eats and what he promotes in the Grown by Nature items, and also Jason Durkovics, who has been so helpful in us in being able to carry them, and he really has looked into what is best, certainly for him and his family, I guarantee you. Let me ask you this, John. First of all, do we have any callers? Randy in Montana. Let's get to our callers first. Randy in Montana, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, Randy. You're on with Dr. Eric Llewellyn and Jason.
For your guest, how does he get vitamin B12 and vitamin K2, or does he feel it's necessary?
I've never actually gone out of my way to take vitamin B12 other than the renatured, the the stuff that Jason has. But I get some B12 when I do eat my cheese. I don't particularly get overfussed about B12 because I don't seem to have any deficiency. But I do have some nori, which is a Japanese sea vegetable, which is very high in B12. And I don't seem to... have ever had any sort of deficiency there, but I get quite a lot from the supplements, to be honest with you, and I've never found any real need to take any other B12 supplement. I've never had any clinical signs. As far as the K, again, there's plenty of vitamin K in vegetables. In the fermented soybean bits that I use, which I use miso and things like that.
Let me ask you, are you still eating nori, the Chinese sea vegetable?
No,
are you
I don't
still eating
so much.
nori from Japan?
I like miso, though. I get an organic miso, which gives me K2 anyway.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the phone call, Eric. Let's go to Andrew in Virginia. Andrew in Virginia, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello. Thank you very much. We know someone who has a situation as far as needing red blood cells, and I think they in the past also had to have the surgery and have the stomach removed from cancer at that time. But there was the situation with the red blood cells and producing those, and that's been an issue. Would you have some information on that?
Awfully difficult to give accurate information. What I can tell you is that the iron that Joyce was mentioning is essential for the formation of red blood cells, as indeed is copper, and I would consider that, but without knowing full clinical history, it concerns me a little bit to give advice. What I can do more generally is say that things like chlorophyll will facilitate the growth of new red blood cells and rejuvenate actually spent red blood cells. Glutathione, which you can get from selenium and other sources, of course. Most of the B vitamins are needed for red blood cells, but there's a whole range of things like blueberries actually will inhibit free radicals from damaging red blood cells, which is quite important. Do you live in a warm part of America or a temperate part?
I guess more temperate, moderate. It's Virginia.
If it's warmish, then the person could consume a little grapefruit. If it's cool, not. But the grapefruit will promote the elimination of dead blood cells and help to recruit.
That's interesting. I did not know that. We'll be back after this 1 minute, 10-second break with Dr. Eric Llewellyn and Jason Durkovics. Wow, that is interesting. We'll be back. Stay tuned to the Power Hour. Joy Schreiber. Welcome back to the Power Hour. Thank you for joining us, caring about your world. We're talking to Dr. Eric Llewellyn today, naturopathic and osteopathic doctor, who has searched and researched foods and nutrients, and Jason Durkovics, who is our liaison to Grown by Nature, and he's always there he's so good, so helpful for us, I got to tell you. Let me go to, let's see, who's our next caller, John? I lost it. Regina in Texas. Regina, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Joyce. I have a bunch of questions. I want to be healthy, so what happens is I get in the car, and when they advertise things, I buy them. Are you there? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm there.
Okay, so recently I got this one. It's called CalMax, and what it is, it's a fast-absorbing calcium magnesium beverage made with vitamin C. Now, then I started hearing about how taking calcium is bad because you can't dissolve it or something like that. So could you please tell me about calcium, if we should be taking supplements or not, and stuff like that, please?
What type of ingredient or form does it list on there?
Yeah, he needs to know what kind is in there. By the way, we give no medical advice. This is for your educational and entertainment purposes only. But Virginia needs to know what CalMax is. He does not know.
Glutamate, calcium, with an A, Azorbital, yeah. And then magnesium, and then it's vitamin C. What you do is you put it in a glass and it bubbles up.
Yeah, no. But what kind of magnesium?
You need to come back a long way. Did you do any chemistry?
No, very little.
Then I should go and study some before I would take that product.
Okay, there's your answer, Regina. Do you have another question for him real quickly?
That's a bunch of chemicals.
Yes, one more question. A while ago, another thing I looked into was blood types and how different blood types should eat different foods and stuff like that. Do you believe in the whole concept of the blood type method of searching out what's best for you?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I think there is something in that. I really do. My own position is I haven't overly researched it. I've read all the books by the American doctors. They seem very sound. I've spent too much time in third world countries where they don't know their blood type and they all eat the same sort of food, very restricted, and they seem reasonably healthy. So I think there is something in it, but I just haven't looked at it. I think it purely depends on you.
Thank you very much for the phone call. Go ahead, Regina.
I'm sorry, one more. What about the pH thing? Because I'll buy that too, where you put the drops in the water and it makes your water the better pH for you to. Is that just a waste of money, or is that a good idea?
The wonderful Joyce did say earlier on a little bit about some clay. It's old-fashioned. It works.
I bought it. I just haven't done it yet. So that's my
and let me just say, Regina, let me say, the reason I started the Power Hour was because I did the same thing you did. I bought everything I heard about, and I wasted a lot of money. So we have calcium, magnesium, really good products at the Power Mall. We have all these items, and we've already researched them, and especially Grown by Nature is where you're going to get your good calcium and magnesium. So call the Power Mall and do business with the good guys here at the Power Mall. We would love to support you in that.
You'll feel a lot better.
All right. Thank you very much for the phone call. Well, we're about out of time. It's been real interesting.
Joyce, may I please tell the man with the red blood cells, beetroot, good old-fashioned organic grated beetroot is very good for red blood cells. Sorry.
Absolutely. Or blending it or juicing it.
Absolutely. Beetroot and its anti-cancer properties and its red blood cell promoting are phenomenally well researched, and I've probably got 200 pages in my computer on just beetroot.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, our Heavenly Father knew what we needed, and that's why He gave it to us. And we said, no, thank you. We've got all this processed junk out there.
And young beetroot leaves as well.
Yes, beetroot leaves, yes. I want to ask you also about getting organic food in the UK now. Are you getting more or less organic food over there?
We get a lot more labelled organic, but you have to go to local shops to get real organic.
Interesting. Thank you very much, both of you, to Jason Durkovics and Dr. Eric Llewellyn for joining us in the Power Mall today at the Power Hour. Thank you.
All the best to you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
You have a blessed day. And call the Power Mall. Don't go buy from the radio. I'm telling you, don't buy from everything you drive down the street and hear. We've tried them all.